Welcome back to The Evil Within. This is our You Asked For It achievement run. Therefore, it's a new game on Akumu difficulty. We're starting Chapter 11. Just to kind of recap where we are in the game. We started in Chapter 7. We started trying to break into Ruvik's mind, trying to solve the puzzle of who Ruvik is. We being Sebastian, of course. He used all of his best intellect and his best detective skills to interrogate the mind, if you will. Got all the way through the outer shells in Chapter 7, went through the neglected neural pathways that lead bound to the darkest memories of Ruvik in Chapter 8, and right at the end of Chapter 8, he met with Dr. Jimenez there, and Dr. Jimenez was explaining that he was trying to get them out, that there might be a possible way to get out. Just as that conversation was happening, a huge amalgam appeared and started chasing us. We ran in sheer panic down a hallway, and our subconscious led us directly back to the sanctuary. I mean, that's the only place of refuge it knows inside the STEM world. As we got there, in sheer panic and terror, not paying attention, Ruvik just followed on our coattails and was led straight into Leslie's sanctuary. So the arms race that we've been in with Ruvik, trying to gain enough bioenergy that we see in the form of green goo, we were trying to harvest that to make ourselves stronger, to be able to combat with Ruvik. Ruvik's been consuming people and gaining all that bioenergy directly from them in order to breach Leslie's sanctuary. However, we led him... Leslie led us into his sanctuary. We built our sanctuary as an addition to that sanctuary, and when we ran and panicked back to the sanctuary, we brought Ruvik with us, and therefore, with guile, more than with power, Ruvik gained entrance. And we see at the beginning of Chapter 9, we see a footpath directly connecting Ruvik's home, the Victoriano mansion, that he has a very stable construct of his own. It's a huge mansion. There's a footpath between that and Leslie's sanctuary. So the arms race really ended at the end of Chapter 8. And you can see it freely, like all through Chapter 10, there was a lot of energy expended by Ruvik to create a huge number of monsters, to create the amalgam, the three traumas, as well as there was lore that we had to contend with. And the energy was just flowing freely. He's no longer concerned about how much he has to gain, because he already has what he was picking the energy up from and for, and that was to gain access to Leslie's sanctuary, to breach the inner defenses of Leslie. We did it for him. We brought him in just like the Trojan horse. So just like Odysseus breached Troy, Ruvik breached Leslie with guile. We don't completely understand that, we being Sebastian. Sebastian doesn't completely understand that. So he still feels like he's in an arms race, but he's now got what he thinks is the key to the whole thing. He knows who and mostly what Ruvik is, and he's working on trying to figure out how he's going to overcome that. He's trying to head back to his partners. He's going to be looking for Joseph and for Kidman. He thinks he's winning the war. He's chasing down a dead end. But we'll get to that a little bit later as the story progresses. But I want you to keep in mind that we're no longer taking... We're still doing the same thing. We're still looking for a way to overcome Ruvik. However, Ruvik is now in a foot race. What he's trying to do is get to... I mean, he's kind of the CPU, so he's already kind of at Beacon, but he wants to be there, and he wants to be able to capture Leslie. He's trying to push Leslie to get to Beacon. You helping Leslie get to Beacon, Kidman helping Leslie to get to Beacon, all that works in his favor now. He wants to be there to capture Leslie. The only risk that he has left... Well, he still has a risk that someone might find a way to get out besides getting back to Beacon. But really, Sebastian and Kidman are no longer prime concerns. As long as he keeps them apart so that they don't understand what's going on in totality together to solve the problem. As long as he can keep them at odds, he's okay. All right, so here we are. We've fallen out of the sky in a great as above, so below type moment. We crawled out the bottom of Ruvik's mine and fell from the sky down to the torn up streets of Krimson City. You see that Crimson City is still undergoing a hard rendering problem because of the thousands of mines that have been connected to STEM via Jimenez turning on the wireless version of STEM. And that sucked in probably thousands of people in the city area around the Beacon Hospital. All those mines have a different memory of what Crimson City is. And so the city overall is falling apart. Ruvik could maybe solve that, but he's not really interested in solving it. The terror that it generates helps him harvest more bioenergy. A couple of points I want to make about this small construction zone. It's not particularly hard, but it can be kind of surprising. You saw that there was an extra guy there by the door. You really need to snipe him before you start coming into this area. If you don't, he's looking straight at the area, so when you climb up on the fence, everybody gets alerted. And then you have to deal with everybody all excited. And it's just much easier to deal with them calmly. My particular strategy I like to do is clear the area so that I can pick up everything I possibly want to. For my Akumu run, I am not trying to speed run. I'm just trying to get through it. So to me, this was a nice feel-good moment of being able to do some stealth kills, some sniper kills. This little area is a nice little setup. It gives you the confidence that maybe you're going to be successful. Later on in this episode, we're going to face the number 2 cited place of rage quitting. The first, of course, was the burning rooms in Chapter 6. I personally think that the Chapter 6 burning rooms is number 1 because it happens so early on. You don't have a whole lot invested. The farther you go in the game, the more things you overcome, the more you have invested. So here we are in Chapter 11. We've only got 4 chapters after this chapter. For people to rage quit here, that's a real statement as how challenging this is going to be. So just understand that the end of this chapter is going to get highly strategic. So I'm going to try to spend only a little bit of time about the strategy until we get to that final construction zone site, and then it'll all be strategy till the end of the video. That's the video ends as we get out of that construction site. The last bit of note of caution here is when you touch that door, this is going to open. These are much faster and much more aggressive zombies than you're probably used to from the other difficulties. You need to be up there where you can hit all 3 of them with one shotgun blast so that you can knock them down. Inevitably, I don't get all 3 of them burned. If you hit them just right and you caught them just right, you might get them all 3 burned. The goal there is to just get them on the ground and control them. Crowd control with the shotgun right there works very fine. You could use, you could have maybe used a flashbang or a electric bolt, but shotgun shells seemed cheaper. This next little segment coming up, I'm reloading. It looks like I'm preparing to fight. I'm not. I'm preparing to run. Pick up your matches. Go all the way to the back up. There's some ammo there. Pick that ammo up before you pick up the key. Because when you pick these keys up, you need to run as fast as you can. You almost need to pick them up in stride, if you will. Be running already and get through that door. As that guy opens it, he'll open it for you. Go left. If you've got to get left, or if you try to run straight down, he'll shoot you as you go down that way. And you've got to get to this door. There's a guy to your left up on top of a container there that also has a machine gun. But he was climbing up there and he was getting set. And if you're fast enough, you get to the door, you get it opened, you're safe. But the only way to do it is to be running as soon as you come out of the animation of collecting those keys. As soon as that happens, you need to already have the run key down and be pressing forward when that animation ends. So, I'm telling you, it's very fast. And just go right by that guy. Don't bother trying to fight with him. That's a fool's gambit trying to fight 2 people with machine guns where any stray bullet ricocheting off a wall kills you. And they're each going to take 6 or 7 shots. They've got body armor on, so don't even bother. Just get out of town as quickly as possible. You'll see the water segments coming up. I'll talk about their strategy real quick. You'll see that there are not bodies where there are normally bodies to knock down. So the first area works pretty much the same as it always does on the other difficulties. The second area, you'll need to throw a bottle instead of dropping a body. And then in the third area where you swim in, actually we're not going to get to that this time, so I guess I will yeah, we don't get quite that far in this video, so I'll talk about that in the next video. All right, so that's the strategy for a while. Notice the keys that we'll pick up. The one on the merry-go-round or the carousel and the one here in the water are often missed. So just a note to self, pick up the keys. Okay, so now let's talk some lore. Okay, so we discussed in the last episode, and we didn't have time to completely finish talking about it, but we established that through the DLCs with Kidman, we find that Dr. Jimenez point blank says that the reason Ruvik and Leslie are so in sync and Leslie's so useful to them, could be useful to Mobius, is because they're so in sync that he could run STEM. Now, of course, that's bad news for Leslie as far as what they might plan on doing to him. But from our perspective in this game, in the main game, the point being that the reason Ruvik could get out of STEM through Leslie is because of that shared lifetime trauma. They shared, Leslie lost his parents, or his family was killed in front of him. Ruvik lost Laura, as we went to great detail to find out in Chapter 9. And all the shared trauma he had there. But notice that also in Chapter 9, we found out that Sebastian lost his daughter, Lily, to a fire. The similarities are striking. Therefore, Sebastian has much of the same shared trauma that Leslie and Ruvik have. Therefore, he should be in sync with Ruvik as well. In other words, his mind should be able to be used by Ruvik, or for that matter, by Mobius, to run STEM, because the shared trauma. However, this never comes up, and so I think at the core of the messaging in the game, when you really peel back all the layers of the onion, I mean, it's a great, just exciting game to play. A little strange in the sense that if you're not really thinking about the lore, the weird landscapes and everything would be very hard to understand. Here's where you have to throw the bottle, by the way. There's also, if you go over to the right by that sign, there's kind of a footpath on the bottom of that sign where the people that would have put the sign up when it was a side on the side of the road would stand, and you could get into the water much later. You can bother with that or not. This is me finding out for the first time that there's no body, and I also had never realized that there was a walk path over there. So, I did kind of the caveman's simple thing, throw the bottle, then dive. Okay, with that out of the way. So why isn't Sebastian more, why bother with Leslie when you can have a Sebastian? Why do you want the mental patient, the cowering little small mental patient versus Sebastian? I mean, if I could take over one of those two bodies, I would much prefer to take over Sebastian than I would take over Leslie. Seems kind of obvious, but why? Why can't I? Why can't Ruvik do that? So I want to talk about their traumas. There's an old saying that says that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to what happens to you. Well, think about how Ruben reacted to losing Laura in the barn fire. Every fiber of his being turned to hate and anger. Just pure hate, pure anger. He had a target. He knew who to hate. He hated his parents for locking him in the basement. He hated the Elk River villagers for burning the barn. He pretty much hates the world. He turns straight to anger. Well, what's a natural response to anger? A natural response to anger is to try to overcome that which, or to torture or to beat down that which is making you angry. That's just the natural human response to anger, is to try to overcome. So what is Ruvik doing? Ruvik is trying to gain as much power as he can. Maybe not in a physical way, but with using his mind to build STEM, be able to torture people. I mean, he's shown a pure monstrosity in the ability to torture other people, dissecting them and poking at their brains while they're still conscious. One thing to point out here is that there are 2 false Ruviks on Akumu here instead of 1. Burning a couple of bodies right there could be useful, because otherwise they kind of come running up behind you. But don't take the time to try to burn them all. Otherwise, you need to be standing here when the cutscene happens. And you need to have your Magnum out or something very, very strong. I chose the Magnum because it shoots a little faster than, I don't have my crossbow fully upgraded yet, but you can do it with agony bolts. The goal was to run over there and then light him on fire. And you see how one of my apparently didn't burn, came up right behind me. Now here's the second Ruvik, and if I was a little faster, I could have turned around and I could have gone directly to him. The lower hands are already out, but the Magnum takes care of them. But now there's just too many. The better approach would have been if I could have gotten rid of the first Ruvik fast enough and gotten around and come straight down between those cars, straight towards that Ruvik, and taking care of the lower hands there and then the Ruvik there. As soon as you kill the second Ruvik, everything else drops.
Some kind of fake?
Okay, so Ruben's response to losing Laura, anger and hate, leading him to seek power over those that he hates, wishing to subjugate them, wishing to torture them. That eventually even turned to, as we saw in some of the notes, that he now wants to be able to break down the human psyche, and he has a 3-part key to do that we'll talk about in the next upcoming episodes. What was Leslie's response? And he was probably about the same age as Ruvik. They seem to be contemporaries. But Leslie's response when his family was murdered in front of him was not hate and anger. It was fear and victimhood. He basically pulled inside of himself. So much so that long before any of this came about, he was already being treated psychologically by Dr. Jimenez's brother as a mental patient. Well, we've talked about, we established pretty securely that Leslie has an incredible internal fortitude and ability to build a sanctuary. And he crawls into that sanctuary every time he's been connected to STEM. He's crawled into that sanctuary, locked the doors. There are no external doors to this sanctuary, and here we are back in the sanctuary. And now notice how all the walls are all torn up. The floor is dirty. You're going to find bottles and newspapers strewn everywhere. This is the result of Leslie's no longer coming to sanctuary. It's no longer Leslie's sanctuary. Straight down this hall to the left, there's a footpath that leads back to Ruvik's home. Now, you can't actually follow it. The game doesn't let you, but when we walked down that hallway in chapter 9, we didn't even go through the mirror. It just turned into a footpath that led to Ruvik's home. That was Ruvik coming the other way. Now, without Ruvik actually traveling at the time, Sebastian can't probably travel it.
Missing, Crimson City Police Inspector Arnold Brown claimed to be holding important evidence in an unsolved case before he disappeared. Mutilated body found in sewer. The body of a man with his brain exposed and surgical scars found in Crimson City sewer. Dead for several months. Reminiscent of Elk River serial killer.
Looks like that was another one of those private interviews that was set up by Dr. Jimenez with Leslie, or not with Leslie, with Ruben, where Officer wound up with his brain picked apart. Okay, so between chapter 8 and chapter 9, we established the footpath that Ruvik could take into the sanctuary. You see the results of that. You see the sanctuary is falling apart. Leslie can no longer get there. We talked about in chapter 10 how Leslie had gone to Dr. Jimenez as kind of the only possible solution. Then my sanctuary has been breached. I was hoping that Leslie was hoping that Kidman and Sebastian could save him. He gave them sanctuary inside his sanctuary, but Sebastian actually led Ruvik straight back to the sanctuary at the end of chapter 8. And since then, Leslie hasn't been able to come back here. So he went to his subconscious, his mental mind searched out Dr. Jimenez, who had always pulled him out of the STEM previously. Now he was pulling him out while he was tucked away in his sanctuary. So whether or not Jimenez could do that now or not. But there is a risk for Ruvik at the center that Dr. Jimenez will be able to pull Leslie out without taking him to Beacon, where Leslie can be overcome, where Ruvik can directly download himself into Leslie or become Leslie. So Leslie's response to the trauma of his parents being murdered in front of him was not outward aggression, but inward defense building. This is another common reaction to trauma. One is anger and hate and externally becoming almost a bully, wanting to overcome those, and you pretty much usually wind up seeing the whole world as those. The other common response is to withdraw, feel the victim, become the victim, but withdraw internally to where your internal structures become so hardened and so strong that people can't reach into you anymore. And anytime anybody's close to you, you pull into that shell. And that hardened shell is what Sebastian and Ruvik were accumulating mass amounts of bioenergy for. Ruvik to overcome it. Sebastian mostly in wanting to fight Ruvik, to overcome Ruvik, to stop Ruvik. Well, you can see how the response of hatred and power grabbing ties well with its counter, Leslie. Withdraw and go inside. That makes Leslie the perfect shell. Ruben, if he can get a hold of Leslie, if he can get his subconscious into the state where it's there at Beacon in front of him, he can download himself into Leslie. Leslie will pull back into his internal structures, into his own internal basement, walk in the door himself and lock it and hand the key to Ruben. There is no better possible vessel for somebody like Ruvik than somebody that will lock themselves away in their own mind as a victim inside their own mind. It gives Ruben free reign. Okay, so now we've established that. We haven't talked in depth about Sebastian's response. We'll get that to that in the next episode. I want to talk about the strategy of what we're doing here in this large battlefield. You saw we shot one guy before we even jumped down into the area. If you were watching very closely, there was a highlight of another guy dropping down here. He's a sniper. If you don't kill him, if you do not kill this guy before you do the battle over there, he will pick at you while you're trying to do the battle with everything coming out of that garage door that swings open and closed. So this to me is a must in the strategy, though I haven't seen anybody else do it. I shoot a flashbang up there. That gets him to do that little dance that we were watching. It's because he's blind. He's reacting to the flashbang. And then when he finally does stand up, take his head off. If you miss, then he will come and he will sit down at the end of that rail, and you're basically in a sniper battle. You need to shoot him before he shoots you. That explosive bolt is a precaution, because multiple times going through this, there are times when I don't get one of the people here handled correctly and he gets up that ladder. Well, I don't want him up that ladder throwing grenades at me, so I put a bolt up there. Now, as soon as you step up, that's going to open. Have your grenade ready, throw it in there. Usually this guy that falls out first, the guy that was in the front, and then the other two guys, the grenades don't kill them with one blast on Akumu, which is, unfortunate, but it is what it is. This guy has a gun. You need to be very careful of him, and you need to not let him get very far. I thought that guy was already dead. He wasn't. Okay, now he's dead. That's the crumpled doll effect. The placement of that electric bolt is very precise. It needs to be on that kind of darkened area, at this side of that darkened area. It sort of depends on how strong your electric bolt is. Ours is amped up a little bit, and the distance is a problem. You do not want them being back in the shed there. If they're in the shed stunned, then it won't work. You have to get them out. They have to get out far enough, but you want to catch as many of them as you can. You see that I caught all three of them. The next thing I used was the freeze bolt, the frost bolt. It would be great if you could get all three of them. It doesn't normally happen that way, so be prepared for the one you don't get. As soon as that other wave is over, you saw it. Turn, run, get down off the platform, get back here. Now, depending on how fast you did it, I did it a little slow because I didn't get all three of them with the flash bolt. So I get another round of these armored guys, and this is pretty much the only place I've found where you can get these armored guys. They won't shoot at you until after they've dropped down off of that. They drop down off that, you shoot them with a shotgun that knocks them down. You need to stay crouched. Even back here, The door is opening and closing, and there's a guy with a machine gun. And if you're not crouched, even if you're just standing like where I'm standing right now, if you're standing there, a stray bullet can hit you. Certainly wait until the door is closed to get up there, because you see the animation when he that's not me standing up. I'm holding this crouch button the whole time, but when he gets up, he will stand up. You need to make sure the door is closed when you try to get back up there. Get to this spot, stay crouched. Do not throw the grenade while the door is open. You need to be paying attention to the timing. The timing's consistent. It's not random. So get in the rhythm with it. Tell yourself, if you have to wait 3 or 4 times, that's fine. And you see, I was so slow that they even generated another one. So you don't have all the time in the world, but no, this guy's extra. Most people don't have to face him. I was so slow that they threw another guy at me, but the grenades worked. But you need to get in rhythm with that, with the garage door, so that you're throwing the grenade, and the grenade's in the air when it comes open. You're already ducked back down. If you try to stand up and throw the grenade, if you try to throw it, even ducked, if you throw it while the door is open, he will shoot you every single time. And people quit because of that, because it's very hard to know what to do, and you can only probably have brought 3 grenades with you, and there's one there, so you have 4. And I used 3. So it's now when you go over to that ladder, that spawns this sniper here. You do not want to progress until you've dealt with this sniper. Now, oddly, if you run back to this platform, you can stand here all day, take your time. He's not going to shoot at you anymore. He's watching the area over there, and he would shoot you over there. So step out into the door, give him to shoot that once. He'll hit the ladder or the door frame next to it. You're not really in any danger there. And as soon as he shoots, then run over to the platform. You got all the time in the world to pick him, pop his head that way. Okay, so that was the easy part, believe it or not. I mean, a lot of people, this garage door just kind of ends their game. You can imagine this is the number 2 quit spot in the game, and for it to be this late in the game, for the number 2 spot to be within 4 chapters of ending the game, that tells you how hard this area is. This is no joke hard. Follow the strategies. They will eventually work. You'll eventually get the timing. You'll eventually understand when to throw the grenades. Unfortunately, you only get to try a few times at the grenades before you run out of grenades, in which case that's over. You might as well start over, because you're not going to kill that guy any other way than with the grenades. Maybe if you manage to do something spectacular with explosive rounds, explosive bolts, but you know. Okay, so now we're into the next area. This is mostly looting, but it's also getting rid of traps, bear traps on the grounds. As I've said, I'm not particularly good at disarming those proximity mines, so I don't do that. You could shoot them. There doesn't really seem to be bottles laying around to throw at them to get them out of the way. Mostly they're not going to be in your way, though, if the strategy that you're going to see works for you. You won't have to worry about them, but you can see they're all over the place. There's a lot of extra ones that aren't there in the other difficulties. Again, I don't know what's on Nightmare. Nightmare may have the exact same layout. I believe, Nightmare is spelled with the English spelling of Nightmare versus the Japanese spelling, which is Akumu. The American Nightmare, you're not a one-touch death. So maybe on Nightmare they have the same places, but you don't have to worry about the quick kills that happen to you on Akumu. But certainly on the other difficulties, casual and survival, they're not as many bombs. Also, I don't think there's quite as many foes, though it's kind of a push. It's pretty close to the same number of foes. In the first area, obviously there were extra snipers that we had to deal with that aren't there on casual and survival. You can see this is where we killed that one sniper. His body blew all the way back here. Now when you start to crank up, people are going to start coming down that ladder. And there's other people, I'm not exactly sure where they come from, but they'll be down below. And they'll be coming up your ladder. Now, this didn't work as well as I thought it might. I had high hopes for this, for that bomb. You'll see it goes off, but it doesn't kill. It weakens one of them. It might even weaken the other one, but I was thinking there's two guys with body armor, SWAT gear, and machine guns that come down that ladder, and I was hoping it would kill both of them. Or at least knock them down to where I could kill both of them. As it is, I wind up only being able to kill one of them. So my strategy was that this bomb was going to explode and do great things for him, but the other guy went right by it like it wasn't even there. This guy stands around long enough to get that. It obviously weakened him because one bullet, even to his chest where he has the body armor, it killed him. Now this guy's weird. If he flops down where his back is up, you can shoot his tank, and as we saw earlier in the episode, it will explode and then it hurts the other ones. But that is actually more preferred. If he's laying on his back like that, and you shoot the big guy that comes up after him, you shoot him, and then as the last guy, the third guy, is climbing up there, drop the match on him. It's hard to get that timing to work out right because it's sort of random, the scattering of how quickly they come up. So you might have to deal with one or more there, even if you burn them. In other words, you may not catch them all with the flames. So I was trying to do the same thing with this guy that I did with the last guy, and I was kind of wait for him to stop the dance because it's kind of hard to hit the head with the dance going on. Probably should have just shot him in the body because this wound up being dangerous. I shoot, and of course that last little juke, I missed him, and now I don't know what he's doing there. He's trying to climb up. I hit him. That doesn't kill him. I hit him pretty, I guess, in the neck. But now he's coming up here, so I've got a good defensible point. As long as there's only one guy coming up the thing, no problem. Okay. So hopefully you see how that strategy worked there. That turned into a very good strategy from my perspective. It's not particularly hard to pull off. Like I said, you might not burn all three of them that are coming up the ladder. Sometimes one of them will get away from that. If they do, then of course you're still at the top of the ladder and can defend it. So you can see how the bombs are a little bit of a problem, but not too much of a problem. Just kind of be careful, don't get too close to them. You can hear them beeping. You can always crouch and walk over to the ladder. Now, here is where the people do quit. And the first thing you'll notice is that there is nothing in that cage. On the other difficulties, you walk up here and it's just filled with ammunition. So I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, how much ammunition do I have? I'm going through all my guns, reloading, making sure everything's loaded fully. You don't want to be reloading much during the movement of this gondola tram. The number one thing to understand about the strategy of this part is don't try to shoot them until they've planted their feet. Wait until they're standing still before you shoot them. Then one shot from any gun will cause them to fall into the pit and be no longer a concern. So, like for instance, we'll just pick them off, and you need to shoot them in this order. You kind of need to deal with them in this order. Just don't shoot him now. Wait. Now shoot him. Okay. Wait. Now shoot the barrel. Of course, the barrel will kill him anytime he uses a push. You could have shot that a little sooner, but the idea is wait until they plant, then shoot them. If you shoot them and they're on a ledge and they're planted, they fall. So same thing with these two Molotov cocktail throwers. Wait until he gets there, then shoot him. He'll fall off. You need to take care of him in this order. Turn to this guy. Turn to this guy. Wait until he planted. Then you can just shoot him in the chest, even though he has body armor. I don't know where this guy went and how long it took him to get there, but one shot after he's planted, he falls. Now coming over this way, it's real tempting to shoot this guy before he gets planted because he has to turn around. Wait until he turns around and is stable, and then I just shot him in the arm and he killed him. That barrel is next. I get really lucky because the guy kicked it down there for the next guy. This guy you need to wait on just a little bit. There's a guy, see the guy up there, he dropped down next to him and he burned them both. If you don't shoot him first, don't shoot the guy with the bottle first down there. Now I thought I had killed this guy, and I got extremely lucky that he missed me the time his rounds went off. I don't know where they went, but that order is very specific. All right, Well, we had some fun talking about the different responses to trauma, the hate and anger versus the victimhood. We talked about the world still falling apart and that this is no longer an arms race, it's now a foot race. That was the first half of our chapter 10. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.